I broke one of my rules. Not a photography rule, because I don't care much about them, but a choice that I have made years ago, to never photograph cemeteries. They already carry heavy emotions: silence, memory, absence. And I never wanted my photography to lean on something that dictates the mood so strongly. But then, hidden in the forest near my home, I found this abandoned cemetery. Overgrown, forgotten, yet strangely alive in its mystery. It felt less like a place of endings and more like a secret waiting to be discovered. And that was enough for me to break my own choice. Why did I avoid cemeteries? Because I wanted my photography to remain open. Cemeteries impose heavy feelings on people, and classic example is when I was living in the city and I was in a photography club. Whenever they wanted to do an excursion or go somewhere that they would have a chance of creating some meaningful photos, they would go to a cemetery, just because the feeling was already there. You cannot ignore it. And after visiting a couple of times and seeing that everybody was doing exactly the same thing, exploiting a place but not searching inside them for their own feelings, I made the rule that I would never visit or photograph a cemetery again. So how did I stumble upon this cemetery? Let me give you a background about the Greek Orthodox religion. Every day is devoted to a patron saint, and on August 24th, I think, the patron saint of this chapel was celebrated. So we came here for Mass, early morning Mass. When we arrived here with Melina, I was ecstatic. It was a much brighter day. The sun was filtering through the the sun was filtered through the pine leaves and the pine branches and was falling on the tombs and the graves that were covered with ivy. It was like stepping into a lost world, and this created immediately a sense of mystery to me that I felt like I had to explore. It was like nature and memory intertwined, a feeling that time is blurring between human memory and natural cycles. So let's go and photograph with respect about the place, but without allowing it to impose its feeling on our personal vision. I am not here to document the graves. I'm not interested in them because they're old, because they're abandoned, or because they're beautiful. I am here to tap into the mystery of the place, that mystery that created that initial feeling that made me want to come here and explore. And the mystery of the place isn't necessarily hidden in the obvious. The graves, for example. Just like many photogenic and picturesque places, true photographs are hidden in the small details or in places that often people overlook. Let's take example this wall here. The thing that attracted me in this place, in this scene, is first of all the light, because it catches some glimpses of the diffused light. It's brighter than the rest of the forest, so it creates a contrast and it immediately attracts my attention. And the way I'm going to photograph this, I'm going to put the ivy and the bright part of the picture in the foreground, and I'm going to use the rest of the scene as a backdrop, the dark scene as a backdrop, in order to create that patch of light, that glimpse of hope that I'm always looking to have in most of my images. And if we walk a bit further up, we have these fences dumped on the side of the wall. Let me show you. And again, the same principles apply. I'm going to use that bright element as a focal point. I will anchor the eye to the rest of the image. The mood is here. We have diffused light. The way I perceive this is that I'm going to keep this as bright as possible, and then the whole picture surrounding it is going to be dark. I'm hoping for a bit more light, but even if it doesn't arrive, even if the clouds don't part, the ivy leaves are considerably brighter than than the ground, than the underlying ground. So if I expose for them, the rest is going to be kept dark, and it will create the mood that I'm after. I don't want my shot to be blurry, so I'm cranking the ISO up to 1600 f8, and speed is 1/50th. Taking 2 shots for good measure, and it will do the trick. Again, I'm going to repeat this many times over. Beauty is found in the details. That almost out-hinged door, semi-open, it's just excellent. And we have some cyclamines at the back, sprouting from between the ivy. It creates a very nice detail. I'm not necessarily going to focus on them. I really like the mood here. Some patches of beauty. It's not something that I'm after very much. Now, one thing to remember is that what attracted me was when I was standing up. So if I change my angle to somewhere lower, I'm going to lose that feeling. So I'm going to photograph this scene standing up. It has started to rain, by the way. So lowering my ISO. I do have the cyclamines at the back. I'm going to leave them like that because they provide a nice touch of color. They're going to be blurred because I'm at f8, shooting at nearly 50. So just going to use them for just that smudge of color. And then this cross that is engulfed by the ivy is also very nice. It creates a very nice mood. I'm gonna zoom 70. I don't want to use too much of the railing. Just want to focus mainly on the cross. And there are other. I'm gonna use the crosses from the railing, 1, 2, and the third one in the middle. This grave here, this tomb, I don't know, tomb, I guess it's a better word, immediately caught my attention. I'm not interested in the tomb as a whole, and just like now, especially that it's raining, this wet tombstone and the cross that is partially seen from the ivy that is covering it. So I'm gonna compose just using the ivy part of the tombstone, which and then the ivy at the back closing my frame. Another thing that immediately caught my attention is this thing here. Looks like a goblet or something. It's not, but it really stands out against the ivy. It's looks like it doesn't belong here because this tomb is so covered up that you cannot actually tell if it's a tomb if you didn't have the context. So the way I'm going to shoot this is from this angle. I'm going to focus on that thing. Ivy at the back, as a backdrop, and the ivy just cascading down in the foreground. Again, I'm cropping in post to 5:7, so I'm leaving a bit of breathing room from right and left, but I do this intentionally because I know the image is going to be cropped. I hope that by now you would have understood that I'm using this cemetery as a means to an end. I'm using its ambience, I'm using its vibe in order to express myself. I'm not using it as, I'm not documenting it. And one good example is a following image that came into my mind, is this bright trunk tree against this darker one, and the passage that leads in the background. And I'm going to frame it exactly like that. I'm going to zoom in, so this is going to be the foreground, bright and dark, and then some bright element at the background, pulling the viewer in or out. What this place reminded me is that photography is never about what we see, it's about what we feel. Cemeteries impose atmosphere, yes, but they also invite us to confront what we usually turn away from. For me, this abandoned cemetery became not about death, but about mystery, memory, and the quiet persistence of time. We all carry choices that shape our photography, but sometimes, when we dare to step into places that we usually avoid, we discover a new way of seeing.